drinking tonight. Yay! I'm drinking as well. I'm not supposed to be drinking. My doctor has told me that I drink too much. He says, you have a drinking problem. To which I replied that vodka is a mixture of alcohol suspended in a solvent of water. So it turns out I also have a drinking solution. He's opened with a chemistry joke. He's a renegade. Yes, yes I am. Alcohol is the only drug I do. I don't do any other drugs. I did try and do all the drugs 1 month in alphabetical order. I was way behind, but now I'm up to speed. Well, those are my 2 tester jokes, right? And judging by that, we will be doing stories from now on. Sitting there just going, we will have no more of your fucking puns, Paul Savage. It's fun. Quite a lot of my stories are about me being a dickhead, because I'm a bit of a dickhead, and it makes the stories easier to write. And a while back, a woman came up to me after a gig, and she said, I liked what you did, but you're very hard on yourself. You're very hard on yourself. You're very self-depreciating. Now, the phrase is self-deprecating, right? Self-deprecating. Self-depreciating means that just by being me, my value over time... that is horribly accurate. Been doing comedy a little while. A couple of years ago, I've been doing comedy for 8 years. And what happens when you've been doing comedy for 8 years in the UK is that either you get to be on TV, or you get really sick and sad and depressed and you have to run away. So that's what I did. I ran away to South America because I've been watching lots of documentaries about the end of World War II. And if it's good enough for Nazi high command, it's good enough for me. Moved to Patagonia, grow a massive beard, call myself Esteban, deny my previous crimes, right? A couple of reasons that I chose South America. One, it was on the other side of the world, so you get another summer, love summer. The second one was that the exchange rate was quite good when I went. But the main reason was that I'd learned a bit of Spanish at school. Now, the Spanish that I learned at school wasn't particularly useful for day-to-day existence in South America. For instance, the sentence that I could say with most confidence before I went out there was, Puedo quitarme mi chaqueta, por favor, which means, can I take off my blazer? Yeah, not the most useful phrase in the Atacama Desert. Helpfully, Spanish is a very modular language. You can flip bits around, so you're able to say things like "Puedo quitarme tu chaqueta, por favor," which means "Can I take off your blazer?" That is important. You want to Unfortunately, that does mean going around sweaty nightclubs with a blazer, asking girls to put it on and take it off. It's not the most effective of chat-up lines, I will be honest. Yeah. It's a very interesting one, because I was out there for a while. There were some really cool bits, some really lovely bits, but one of the most interesting places I went was a place in La Paz. It's a club. It's a nightclub called Route 63. Now, you can't find this on any map. It doesn't exist. It moves around from night to night, so you can't Google it. And the reason for that is they're trying to stay one step ahead of the police. And the reason for that is you can go to it, and Bolivia is dirt cheap, so you can go to the bar and you can buy, across the bar, you can buy a pint of beer for about 10 pence, right? And for about £1, you can buy a line of cocaine, and that cocaine is 96% pure. Yeah, I can just see people around here just going, book, we are going tomorrow, right? Just, fuck work, we are going tomorrow, right? Weirdly, when I was in there, I didn't have any cocaine, right? I didn't have any cocaine when I went to the club that has all of the cocaine in. And I thought, why am I... I've never had cocaine. My entire life, I've never had cocaine. I thought, why is this, Paul? Why have you never had cocaine? And why are you not having it now when it is so pure, so cheap, so available? Is it that you are morally against the cocaine trade? A little bit. Is it that you are a stand-up comedian, you already talk very fast about yourself, you have a very high opinion of your own opinions, you probably don't need cocaine on top of that? No, it's not quite that. What I realised it was, is when I was at school, we were taught that drug dealers are evil, and to get you hooked, to get you addicted, they will give you the first one for free, and that will get you addicted, and then they've got a customer for life. And it turns out that I am so cheap, I am still just waiting for my free sample. Quit, fuck off, mate. A free one first. Come on, free one first. That was what we learned at school. That was our drugs education, where they taught us the effects, they taught us the side effects, they taught us that drug dealers were evil, but they have a very good understanding of the freemium business model. And for some reason, they taught us the street names. They'd say, oh, this is ketamine, this is heroin, it is also known as H and horse and skag and smack. Like, why are you making it easier for me to buy? That is a really weird thing to do. Now, I used to be a youth worker, and I would go into schools and we would teach lessons about the dangers of drugs. And every year they would hand down the lesson plan from year to year, and you just work off that. And there's a little prank that I used to like to do, which was to add to the end of the the lesson plan, just extra fake street names to fuck up the next person to use it. Ketamine. Ketamine is a powerful tranquilizer with hallucinogenic properties. It's also known on the street as Ket, Special K, John Kettles, the Ket Offensive, and Kettering Borough Council. I just love the idea of one of my former students walking into a drug shop and being kicked out because he's asked for lamentable Bovril. I think that'd be really funny. I've said a drug shop as if that's where you buy drugs. I know enough. I know enough to know that that's not. But in my head, that is, if we ever legalise drugs in this country, that's how we do it. Don't do cafes like they do in Amsterdam. Do drug shops, like old-fashioned sweet shops, right? You walk in there, ding, and then there's a lovely sort of big mahogany counter, big glass jars behind the thing. There's the little brass scales, because they're the only two people who still use pounds and ounces, are little old-fashioned sweet shops and drug dealers. And then behind the counter, a tiny little Scottish granny with a tartan apron just going, "Oh, what are we doing for you today? It's going up your nose or in your veins." How is that not better, right? Best reason for doing this, best reason to put drug shops in old-fashioned sweet shops is the Daily Mail wouldn't know what to think about it, right? Because the Daily Mail will be going, "Oh, we do hate drugs, oh, we do hate drugs." But on the other hand, oh, small businesses, oh, pointless nostalgia, oh, imperial measures, oh, we bloody love drugs. We love them now. That was the drugs education at my school. My school, relatively middle class, so we just got the effects, the side effects, that sort of stuff. I imagine at rougher schools, the drugs education was along the lines of, don't get it from Monkey Darren's brother. You're not paying that for an eighth. It's only seeds and sticks and shit. No! And I imagine the posher schools, the drugs education was more along the lines where it came with things like tasting notes and wine pairings. Just this is Bolivian flake cocaine. This is best enjoyed with a crisp white Chablis and praying loudly in a restaurant. There are these little rules in life. There's these little rules that go through life, and I reckon that the drugs is one of them. I reckon that the posh people, they had all these rules, and they had like sort of the old school tie, and they had the secret handshake, and they had the old boys network, and we've got rid of a lot of that, and that's great. But they still want to have all of these rules and keep you, us, me, all of us, the scum. They keep us away from the proper job. And I reckon it's probably that with the drugs. You're at a house party, and they come round, and they're just like, "Would you like a big fat line?" And you're like, "Oh yes, please." And look, he's doing Colombian, but after the glorious 12th while not wearing boat shoes. No job at the BBC for him. I'm not bitter. I am not bitter. So, my favourite thing about going out to South America was learning the language. I learned Spanish properly. And there are weird bits with learning Spanish. It's an easy language to pick up, but there are bits that trip you up. For instance, in Spanish, you don't say, "I am this many years old." You say, "I have this many years." Look at you nodding, is it? Like your dictionary corner, just sort of like... I've got a risky joke about Spanish. He's correct. 7 points. Thank you very much indeed. And then you're just going to throw it over to him. He's going to do an anecdote in the break. It's going to be lovely. Yes, in Spanish you don't say, you say "I have this many years," right? And the word for years in Spanish is años. That's A-N, little accent over the N, O-S. If it does not have the little accent over the N, that word is anos, and that word means anus. So I was in a little hotel in Peru, a little Spanish-speaking family. It was a family-run hotel, the mum and dad behind the counter, their 7-year-old girl running round asking me questions in Spanish. She was like, "Where are you from?" I was like, "Soy de Inglaterra." And she was like, "Tick, correct, well done." And then she was like, "How old are you?" And I was like, "I know this one." And what I wanted to say was, "I am 33 years old," which I was at the time. But what instead I said, with some pride, was, "I have 33 arseholes. In a month, I will have 34. And she said, "Whoa, aging is horrific. Get the Englishman away from me. Don't like it." There are weird bits that trip you up. They're called false friends. They're words that sound the same, but they don't quite mean the same. One day, I was sat on a park bench. I was having my lunch. A little old man came over, started chatting to me, asked me what I was doing. He said, "Where are you from? What are you doing?" I said, I'm from England. I'm travelling around." And he was like, "Oh, are you travelling with friends? Viajando con amigos." Amigos, friends. What I wanted to say was that I was travelling solo. Now, the word for solo in Spanish is solo. You'll notice that it's quite similar to our word for solo, which is solo. But what instead I said was that I was travelling Soledad, which means with loneliness. And he's just, oh no, we'll find you a friend. We'll find you a friend. Not me, of course, that'd be weird, but we'll find you a friend. My favourite one for getting into trouble with the old language, because at some point I just decided I wasn't trying it, and I was checking out of a hostel. So various parts of South America are quite dangerous. Before I went out there, people did tell me there's quite a dangerous bit. So before I went out there, I bought a belt, and it's this belt here. And basically what it's got on the inside is it's got a little secret pocket. And what you do there is you put your large bills, your large notes on the inside, and that way if you get mugged, you get your wallet taken, you've still got some emergency cash, right? And one day I was checking out of a hostel, and the woman on the counter was speaking to me in Spanish. She said, it's this much money, right? And I looked into my wallet, and I didn't quite have enough in the small bills, in the small notes that I had there, small coins. And so I was like, oh, do you take card? And she was like, oh, no, sorry, we don't have a card reader. So what I wanted to do, obviously, was to go for the secret pocket in my belt. But you'll notice the operative word in that sentence is the word secret. She was like, it's this much money. And I was like, oh, I don't quite have enough, but hey, wait a minute. And she was like, no, it is not that sort of hostel. Not sure there is that sort of hostel. I don't know what movies you've been watching, but they are not true to life, right? Plumbers don't turn up on time, and I'm not sure that they're... Yeah, anyway, that was a little porn joke for you there. One that I got myself into trouble most with when I was out in South America was the language. The weirdest one was when I had a Kindle. Before I went out there, I bought a Kindle, and they're very good. If you ever do go travelling, do take a little Kindle, because it saves on the weight. But one of the worst things was I was sat one day by a pool, and a bloke came over to me and started chatting to me about it. He said, what is that? Is that some sort of computer? He said it in Spanish, obviously. Otherwise, this joke doesn't work. Good. So he started chatting to me in Spanish. He said, what is that? Is that some sort of computer? And what I wanted to say was, no, it's for reading books. But I couldn't remember the word in Spanish for reading or the word for books. Right? I had to improvise. I was like, oh, it's for looking at pages. I thought you'll get the gist from that. Now, the word for pages in Spanish is página. And in the Chilean accent, apparently that sounds very similar to the word vagina, which means vagina. What is that? Is that some sort of computer? I was like, this, mate, it's for looking at vaginas. He was like, is it any good for that? I was like, oh mate, you can fit loads on there, hundreds, more than I could ever feasibly use, right? I do have to say I do miss the feeling of the real thing, because the real thing, it's got a heft to it, it's got a texture, it's got a quality. I like being able to lick my finger and flip through. I can get through loads of them. 3, 4 in the afternoon I can bury my face. I like it when you find one in the corner of a pub. I find that really brilliant. I like it when you find one that's been really well thumbed. You can just see it's been given a lot of love. But I do have to say, I can really dive in, but I don't always treat them like well. I've been known to really dive in and break more than a couple of spines. So that's why I'm banned from South America. I feel like I now have to do something different, because most people are going to it and you were just like, no. I will tell you one final story about when I was a youth worker, just because we've had far too much filth there, and we'll tell a nice story about when I was a youth worker. I used to actually work with autistic children. That was what I used to do before I did comedy. I used to work with autistic kids, and they're very nice, they're very sweet, but they've got a very black and white view of the universe, and it can be very interesting, right? One day, one of the kids came to me, and it was February, and I remember this because he came to me with a Valentine's Day card, and he was furious about it. And I was like, no, it's nice, it means someone likes you. And he went, no, that's not why I'm angry, look at this. It says, roses are red, violets are blue, when violets are clearly violet. Genius, right? How have I never seen that before in my life? I was like, you and me, kids, we can make some money here. There is a gap in the market here for poetry for autistic people. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? You are 24% like a summer's day. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. 2. I wandered lonely as a cloud. It was better that way. People are dicks. It was a better thing, right? But But one of the things that autistic kids really like is they really like repetition. They really like being made to feel comfortable by just repeating stuff over and over again. And they've all got their own thing that they really enjoy. Like one kid I used to work with, he really liked Henry Hoovers, and he could tell you about all of the difference with all of the Henry Hoovers, and he could tell you all of the different ones, right? And one of the things that a lot of them have is trains. I've never been quite sure why, but autistic kids love trains, right? So I've seen every single episode of Thomas the Tank Engine. I have read every single Thomas the Tank Engine book multiple times. I have seen too much Thomas the Tank Engine, right? I have gone too deep into that universe, right? In the third ever episode of Thomas the Tank Engine, Gordon is being a bad engine, right? Gordon, being a bad engine, he won't do what he's told. So the Fat Controller comes to him and says, Gordon, are you going to do some work? And he goes, no, I'm not going to do any work. So the Fat Controller puts him into his shed. Shed is the correct word over there. Thank you.
He bricks him up. He bricks him up.
Yeah, I was going to go for train hole, and I knew that wasn't correct. Yeah, and then
he bricks him up.
He bricks him into.
Yeah, I know. I remember. It's traumatic.
It's so traumatic. It's so traumatic.
He's traumatised from that.
He bricks him in. There's people not believing. You've seen it, right? He bricks him in for 3 months, right? And Gordon, after 3 months, he comes and takes down the top area. He goes, Gordon, you're going to do some work. And Gordon, in the dark, shaking, shivering, goes, yeah, I'll be good. Just don't put me back in the hole. He takes down the rest of the bricks. The end. That is a happy ending. That is appalling. We're showing that. Imagine that moral that we are showing to small children, right? Now, in case any of you are literary scholars here, that is the exact same plot as George Orwell's 1984, right? Somebody rebels against the system, they get tortured out of their minds, they eventually learn to love their captors. It's essentially Thomas and the case of Stockholm Syndrome, right? And then Gordon realised he had no intrinsic value to society unless he was creating economic worth for others, right? And I was doing this gig a while back, and a bloke came up to me afterwards, and he was furious. He was like, hey, mate, your bit about Thomas the Tank Engine was wrong. I went, mate, it's just a silly joke. He was like, no, your bit about Thomas the Tank Engine was wrong. You're bang out of order, because I've got an autistic son. I went, mate, it's just a silly joke. He went, no, I've got an autistic son, and your bit about Thomas the Tank Engine was wrong, because it wasn't Gordon, it was Henry. You've been really lovely. I've been Paul Savage. Good night, God bless.